Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone, students. I'm your teacher, Nino Saavedra Manaog, and let's introduce to you the course, The Contemporary World. So for this first video lecture, I'm going to introduce to you the course and the course outline. No? So what do you have to study under this course? Okay. The course introduces you to the contemporary world by examining the multifaceted phenomenon of globalization. So the contemporary world only deals with globalization. That's the key word. That's the most important word which the subject is about. No. So when you say the contemporary world, it's all about the globalization. Using the various disciplines of social sciences, we will have to look at the economic, social, political, technological, and other transformations in society. We'll also highlight the interconnectedness of the peoples and the places around the world. So, in other words, this is what globalization is about. No? So, for the learning outcomes, what do you have to study? No, you'll have to what you have to do here is to distinguish between the interpretations and approaches to this term globalization. You'll also analyze or identify and analyze the various drivers or motivations of globalization. It's a very highly charged issue or topic when you say globalization because it touches on almost each aspect of our lives. And not just our lives, but even the lives of the past, of the people in the past. No? Okay. Aside from that, you will also be asked to assess the effects of globalization on the human civilization itself. No? Okay, for the skills, you'll have to analyze the news events. But before going to the world events, we will also ask you to analyze the local issues in the Philippines. No? You'll also be asked to be more updated with the current events. No? What is happening in the world today, especially with the coronavirus disease pandemic? What does it have to do with us, and how affected are we in terms of this pandemic? Pandemic is only one way to explain globalization. No? That's the most visible way of explaining globalization. We will see why in our lectures and activities. But more than anything, the course asks you to learn something for yourself. And what is that? To articulate personal positions on global issues. No, for example, in the concept of pollution or pandemic or health crisis. What do you have to say about it after being able to know and assess the authenticity of these events? What's your position on these things? The second value, I'm sorry, the second value is to identify the ethical implications. What does globalization have to do to you as a person? How does it affect you? And then, how do you respond to that kind of impact? How do you grow in the face of these issues? As an individual, as a member of the community, or as a global citizen? No? With that, I'd like to proceed to the topics or the formal course outline. In the first 2 weeks, we'll introduce you to the globalization concept by defining the term itself. No? In the succeeding weeks, we'll study the structures of globalization. When you say structures, what aspects of our lives are affected, no, by globalization? After that, we will have to explain the global economy and how it affects our selves. Market integration deals with how multinational companies create profit at the same time level up the lives of the global citizens. No? The global interstate system touches on the political aspect of how governments across the world affect each other through policy, trade policies, peace and order, stuff like that. How about the contemporary global governance or global governance? It also deals with the political globalization. And related to that, or corollary to that, is the world of regions. Here, particularly, we are going to know the global divides between the North and South. There is what you call the global North and the global South. The global North immediately is the first in terms of leadership. They were considered the first world, while the global South is what you call the marginalized countries, the second world and the third world countries, or now more politically correct term is being used is developing countries. After that, we'll talk about ASEAN or Asian regionalism, specifically the ASEAN or the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Moving on, we'll also have to study about global media cultures. Facebook, Twitter, and internet culture is one way to summarize this concept. No? Global media culture. Media is itself a cultural construct or a cultural globalization, a form of cultural globalization. Internet is another dominant cultural media. We learn so much about the world through the internet. We learn so much about our neighbors or even our past, which were hardly accessible before. After that, we'll also have to look at the globalization of religion. When you say religion, let's focus on the faith of the cultures. You have the Muslims, the Christianity, and also have the interdenominational or the denominations of Christians. In particular, we'll talk about ISIS and the ISIS is the leading terrorist organization based on faith, no? Or the jihad or the religious war. You'll also have the ISIS and the Al-Qaeda. The Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda comes from the word meaning base or the base. Al-Qaeda is not necessarily a done organization. It's still existing. After Bin Laden and 9/11, no? After Operation Geronimo, which chased and killed Bin Laden in 2012 or 2013, Al-Qaeda is still considered a threat to world peace, along with ISIS. We'll study that. No? And finally, if you still have time, weeks 12 to 14, we'll talk about the global city and global migration. Global migration is the best way to end the course because migration is all about people moving. No? So in other words, I'd like to end this course by highlighting how globalization continues to affect the world over or people all over the world. Globalization cannot be traced at a particular time in the past. At the same time, we cannot know the future of globalization because as long as there's human agency or human civilization, globalization will happen even after you die, even after we die. That's, that's the best way to look at it. Sir, why do we die in particular? Yes, even if we're over, life goes on. And just so does globalization. No? So I'd like you to think that. In other words, the course is very relevant to you as a social individual, no? As a Filipino, as a global citizen. When I was a kid, for instance, I was wondering, sabi ko noon, ano ba yung mga tao sa ibang lugar? Are they like us? And I was haunted by the thought of that. Na parang, I cringed at the thought na ano ka, may tao ka ako sa kabila ng bukid na yan. And practically, in the recent years, this is the only thing I realized. I was practically hinting at globalization. I was practically hinting at or wondering about how people lived in other places. In other words, I was invoking my global sense of self or my global self. How am I related to other religions or cultures? When I say I was haunted, I was afraid that sabi ko, ano kaya yung mga tao dyan? Pareho din kaya sa amin? And I was wondering at that time when I was like 7 or even younger, sabi ko, paano kung hindi? How am I going to deal with them? At the back of my mind, I was worried and anxious about relating to others. It was not necessarily an alien thing na sabi ko parang baka mga alien yan. No. It's all about my fear of the unknown, my fear of difference, of what if they were not like us? How will I deal with these people? And when I encountered the term globalization, regionalization, stuff like that, then I realized that, yeah, these are the answers to my questions when I was a child. I am practically a global citizen, aside from being a son, a brother, or a grandchild. My other subjectivity is my being a global citizen, a Filipino, or an inhabitant of the earth, if you may. So parang ganyan. So for this course, going back to this essence of the course, I'd like you to learn that globalization will teach you most things about yourself and how to go about being yourself in relation to your neighbors, to your community, and to the world. And with that, I'd like to end this first video lecture. And I'll see you online soon, everybody. So have a good day and goodbye.